got
A few years ago, Vice profiled a girl named Kai Shapley, and just watch how happy she is talking about her hopes for her future until she remembers something that changes her mood.
Mom says I might grow up to be the...
What's up with this, Sitch?
What's up with what? This emotional manipulation? Is that what you're asking me?
Yeah, exactly. What's going on?
What do you mean, what's up with emotional manipulation? It's like, that's what's up with it.
What's happening with this clip? Why is this clip in here? Is this some scientific evidence that I heard the left is big into science. They just say, follow the science.
Mm-hmm.
Is this part of the science? Or is this an anecdote?
This is an anecdote. And there's a part, it's really funny in this video where John Oliver says, you know how much I like to cite studies and facts, but instead here's a small child, that will tug at your heartstrings.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, okay.
I want the video of this small child explaining to us how taxes work. Let's see how intelligent this kid really is when it comes to how life works.
Right.
president.
Yeah? What would you change about the world if you were president?
Let chance people be free and go to the bathroom they want to go to.
Are you able to use the girls' bathroom at school?
No. And now they just put security guards for the bathroom security or whatever. Oh, I hate that.
That is brutal.
What the fuck? Do they really have security guards at the third grade school?
Well, I mean, she's like 5, so this is kindergarten, It's not even. There's some weird elements of this story when I kind of looked into it, which is that what I saw was that there was a bill that was thought about passing that would like prevent trans kids from using bathrooms in Texas, but that got voted down, at least when the Kai story was happening. I don't know if it since then has been reaffirmed or anything. But the school, when this happened, because this happened like I don't know, this happened like a few years ago. It was like 5 years ago or something. The school said they didn't say anything about security guards, so I don't know where that came from. And it's kind of hard for me to believe that there were actually security guards standing in front of bathrooms, like checking people under people's skirts or something. Like, how are they supposed to, like, if Kai like walks up to the girl's bathroom, is the security guard gonna know like that's really a boy? It's a 5-year-old in a dress. I don't know.
Yeah, you can't tell, of course.
Right. Yeah, when you're prepubescent, you can't really tell. But no. So the school let out a statement that said that they had told Kai and Kai's parents that she could use they had non-gender specific bathrooms at the school.
Mm-hmm.
They said they had multiple non-gender specific bathrooms in the school, and that Kai was allowed to use those bathrooms if they wanted to. Right. So this does feel sort of like
manufactured
bullshitty to me.
Right.
Yeah, it feels manufactured, I guess would be the correct way of saying it. It does
manufactured controversy here.
Right.
Brutal.
And there is, of course, the issue too, where you say, like, is someone who's 5, do you trust their capacity to verbalize,
understand the issue? Of course,
and understand the issue, but to understand themselves enough to really say if they have gender dysphoria or not. And I would say generally, no, I don't.
I don't either.
And so that's part of the issue.
I think you could gaslight a 5-year-old into thinking they're a unicorn.
Well, with Kai, and it's a difficult issue because people that do have gender dysphoria, a lot of them do say that they felt that they had gender dysphoria from a very, very young age. So that's possible. But also, when you look at the statistics, something like 80% of kids who are that age, who say that they want to be, the other gender, those feelings go away.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I said. Gender dysphoria resolves. That's why we got to start thinking about it as we don't know if this is persistent gender dysphoria or not.
Right. Well, okay, I don't want to reopen that conversation, but yes, essentially that. So it's a little bit of a complicated issue. And with Kai, I believe her parents were against her transitioning at first. So it's not like I don't think her parents were like quote unquote grooming her or anything.
Right. And then they got a documentary crew following them around.
And they said, "Hey, that's pretty good."
Right. We would like to offer you $500,000 for your life story.
Exactly.
There's so much. Yeah, I don't know. I know plenty of people who'd be, right on board to have a transgender kid.
Sure, of course.
Yeah.
Our surrogate father, Daddy J-Mac, for $20. Thank you so much. Says, I have kids and I've taught kids for years. That kid sounds completely coached. Maybe I'm wrong, but if that's the case, shame on the parents. So when Kai talks here and when Kai talks when she's older and she's talking in a later clip that we see, she does sound completely coached in terms of what to specifically say.
Right.
It's possible that her feelings were her own about wanting to transition, but then basically her parents or whoever's feeding her this information is basically giving her the way in which she should express her feelings, essentially, to people on TV. That's what I would guess would be happening. Because that is how it all reads to me. That's why I always I despise for any issue, for any political issue, when they wheel out the kids. They wheel out a bunch of fucking dumb kids to talk about some political issue that they don't understand or know anything about, just because it's an emotional thing that tug at people's heartstrings. And I despise it.
Feels dishonest, doesn't it?
It is. It's a completely dishonest. Like my favorite documentary of all time, Waiting for Superman, which is a horribly dishonest documentary.
I know. I cried so hard when I watched that documentary.
That's because you're a simp.
It's so sad.
Because you're weak.
No, it's because I have feelings, all right?
Uh-huh.
I'm a human being.
You need to be a cold, unfeeling robot.
To watch that? Probably.
No, I mean, you're the one that wants to be a robot, so you prepare yourself.
But I want to have feelings. Come on, listen.
You want to be a human heart with a robot body.
I don't want to go through the data arc. Come on, I want my feelings.
I see.
Dark, it's hard to watch, which would also coincidentally be a pretty accurate tagline for House of the Dragon. But the point is, given what is at stake here, tonight, let's talk about the latest round of attacks on trans rights.
Oh, wait. We're going to talk about the stakes? This is the part I've been waiting for.
Okay.
Sitch. The stakes here.
The stakes.
Yeah, because there's the stakes of wrongly diagnosing a child, and there's the stakes of not catching something that's going to develop into a problem or may resolve itself early. I mean, I see that as the stakes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So John Oliver's going to articulate those stakes, right? Also, so we actually know the stakes.
Right. Well, obviously he's only going to give the one side stakes, so suicide.
So he doesn't really even know the stakes. Okay.
No.
What a moron.
Well, he's British. They just boil all the steaks, so they don't know anything about it.
Boiled steak. That's a crime against humanity right there.
Right, where it's coming from and what it's doing. And before we begin, we're going to be taking the arguments behind a lot of these anti-trans bills seriously because of what they're doing, but not sincerely.
Anti-trans bills, too, is just infuriating.
I know, of course.
Child Protection Act would be more closer to what's going on here.
It's like the abortion conversation, Mm-hmm. Are you pro-choice or are you pro-baby murdering?
Yeah. No,
Are you pro-life or are you pro-taking away a woman's right to choose?
This from the party that is like, we want medical issues to be between you and your doctor.
I know.
Unless, of course, it's trans issues. Then we want to totally politicize it so we can beat up the Republicans in the next election.
Well, I don't agree with that conceptualization.
What do you mean?
I mean...
That's this whole video.
Well, no. Technically, it's the right that is trying to add a buffer between parents and doctors regarding trans issues. So I don't know how you can conceptualize it the other way.
Because it's completely the opposite with Democrats on abortion.
What do
They
you mean?
want the state. Let's keep the state away from women's choices with their doctors. We don't want any sort of intervention, any sort of buffer between a
It's
woman
not
and
the
her
same.
doctor.
What do you mean? In both situations, the right is trying to add a buffer between doctors and patients.
Oh, I guess you're right. It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
And they are for eliminating that buffer.
Right.
Is it the
So, I
same?
mean, well, it's the same stance. I mean, I think I have completely different opinions on those issues. So I don't think you have to buy into one way or the other to be consistent on anything, because I don't think it's a principle. I don't have a principled stance. I don't think there's like a principle behind, whether everything should be up to doctors or patients, or whether the government can be involved in medical procedures or not.
Right. But
I think,
the science is not settled though on the trans issues. That's the problem.
well, that's exactly, that's
That's
the
a
issue. It's
giant
not that
problem.
the science isn't set. There isn't very much science on a lot of the trans issues, especially for kids.
Right. Which is the reason to put some sort of buffer between
Yeah,
doctors
exactly.
and patients.
That is exactly. And the problem is that basically anytime anyone in the medical community talks about that, they get attacked by trans activists, and trans activists try to run them out of the industry.
Right.
And so it creates this false confirmation bias, essentially, for
Right.
people like John Oliver and John Stewart, where they say, well, look, all these organizations, they all say the same thing. It's like, well, they don't actually. If you dig deep into the literature, I found 2015, so I don't know if they've changed. I found 2015 guidelines from the APA, which talk about, this is totally blew me away. It says, existing research suggests that between 12 and 50% of children diagnosed with gender dysphoria may persist.
What?
So in 2015, the APA, regarding kids aged under puberty, this is prepubescent children, so it was like 4 to 12.
Right.
Existing research suggests that only between 12 and 50% of children diagnosed with gender dysphoria may persist.
Right. So 50
Okay.
50 to 80% desist.
Right. Which, first of all, the first thing that should stick out to you is that range is so big that,
Yeah.
that shows you there's not good research in it.
Of course.
An 88 to 50% range is too big a range.
Right.
And then secondly, that's an insane number. Even if we go for the low end and say 50% of kids. By the way, that statistic is pre people using puberty blockers.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the fuck it is with puberty blockers. I think the number goes down substantially for desistance once you're on puberty blockers, and that's the thing.
Because
I saw a study that said that kids on puberty blockers, the desistance rate is only 20 to 30%.
Right.
Okay, so if we go from an 88 to 50% desistance rate to a 20 to 30% desistance rate on puberty blockers, that should be very alarming. And that is very alarming to, I think, people like Kenneth Zucker, who worked with the DSM to write the gender dysphoric guidelines, and other researchers in this field. They look at that number. They look at those two numbers and they say, that's scary.
Something's going on in puberty that causes the desistance, and the puberty
Exactly.
blockers are blocking it.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's scary. We have all sorts of, we don't let doctors just perform any old treatment without some sort of scientific evidence that treatment has some level of success. That's the problem here.
Mm-hmm.
Is that I don't really know that we have that scientific evidence. But you have John Oliver here going out acting like it is. But there are all kinds of batshit crazy treatments that they turn down because they can't show any scientific evidence of them working.
Of course.
Yeah,
Of course.
the
And those
government
aren't
steps
even
in.
right. And part of the problem with the trans issues is because it's become so politicized, essentially.
Nobody can step in and do the research.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you see Lisa Lippman is doing a study, or she did a study on detransitioners. And it's like she got so much flack for her first study
Yeah.
on rapid onset gender dysphoria. I can't even imagine what it's going to be like for.
You can't even say that on Twitter without people losing their minds.
Of course.
Oh my God, you said the right-wing conspiracy buzzwords.
Yep.